You know what's funny? I've seen this show get rewatched by a completely new generation on streaming, people who weren't even born when it first aired. And the first thing they do is get online and the exact same thing that people said back in 1998. Big is toxic. Big is the villain. Why does she keep going back to him? And I get it. I really do. But something about that always bothered me. Not because I think Big was some perfect misunderstood romantic, but because that take is a little too easy. And easy takes, that's not what we do here at Nightcut. So today, I want to ask the question that nobody really wants to sit with. Not because the answer is comfortable, but because it's honest. Was Mr. Big actually the villain? Or did we just need him to be? Now, before anyone comes for me in the comments, and I know you will, I am not here to defend every single thing Big ever did. I'm not. The man has a body count of terrible decisions longer than Carrie's list of Manolos, but here's the question I want to sit with today. Was he actually the villain? Or was he just a deeply flawed person in a story that needed someone to blame? Because here's what I've noticed rewatching this show as an adult versus watching it the first time around. When I was younger, I was Team Aiden all the way. Aiden was sweet. He built furniture with his hands. He loved her unconditionally. Big was the bad guy. Done. Case closed. But then I grew up. I had some relationships. I watched some people I know make some choices. And I started asking a different question. What if Big wasn't the villain of Carrie's story, but Carrie and Big were both the main characters in a tragedy neither of them knew they were writing? Let's go back to the very beginning. Season 1, Episode 1. The iconic meet cute on the sidewalk with the condoms. Charming whatever. But pay attention to what happens after that. Big is honest with Carrie. Uncomfortably, almost brutally honest. She asks him if he's ever been in love. He says abso-fucking-glutely. Okay, so there's something in there. But then as the season goes on, what does he actually tell her? He's not looking for anything serious right now. He likes things the way they are. He's been married before, twice, and those didn't go great. He told her. He literally told her. Now, is it his fault that Carrie heard those words and internally translated them to I just haven't met the right woman yet, and that woman is obviously me? I love Carrie. I really do. But she is a woman who writes a column about relationships and yet somehow consistently mishears the men she's in them with. That's not Big being a villain. That's to people with completely different definitions of what's happening between them, and nobody having an honest conversation about it. Here's something that doesn't get talked about enough. Sex and the City is Carrie's show. We are inside her head. We hear her inner monologue. We see the world through her eyes, and Carrie is not a reliable narrator. Think about it. We never really know what Big is thinking. We get glimpses, the moments where he looks at her like she hung the moon, the moment he shows up in Paris, but mostly, we are getting Carrie's interpretation of his actions, and Carrie's interpretations are, let's say, emotionally charged. When Big is quiet, Carrie reads it as rejection. When Big is cautious, Carrie reads it as cruelty. When Big sets a boundary, Carrie writes a column about it. Meanwhile, what is Big actually doing? He keeps coming back. Every single time. The man could have moved on. He had the money, he had the connections. He was dating beautiful women left and right. And yet, he kept finding his way back to a woman who was, let's be real, also a total mess when it came to him. That's not a villain. That's a man who is just as confused as she is and has zero tools to deal with it. Okay. The movie I know. He left her at the altar. That is the crime he will never be forgiven for. And look, I'm not going to tell you that wasn't awful. It was devastating. For Carrie, for us watching, for every woman who had a Big of their own and saw themselves on that sidewalk in that enormous black flower headpiece. But let's rewind. What was actually happening in the lead up to that wedding? The wedding started as something small and intimate. Carrie's own words. Then it became a Vogue photo shoot. Then it became 200 people. Then it became Page 6. And Big, who explicitly said on camera, "This is my third marriage. How do you think that makes me look?" Watch the woman he was about to marry turn their private commitment into a public spectacle. Was leaving at the altar the right call? Absolutely not. Texting her beforehand like a coward, worse. But was there a man underneath that panic who was genuinely terrified of being publicly humiliated again? Yes, and the show never really gave him the space to be that man. They let him be the monster so Carrie could be the victim. It's cleaner that way. It's better for the column. Here's where it gets interesting. Let's compare Big to the men in this show who got much better PR. Aiden. Sweet, patient, wonderful Aiden, who Carrie cheated on, who forgave her, who she then strung along while never actually letting Big go. Aiden deserved better, but the show used him as a prop to make Big look worse by comparison. That's not a fair fight, Steve. Miranda cheated on Steve, and the show framed it as her arc of growth to forgive herself. Meanwhile, when Big hurt Carrie, it was a character flaw, full stop. The double standard in how this show treats men depending on whether they're the romantic lead or the good guy alternative is something else entirely. And don't even get me started on Berger, a man who broke up with Carrie on a post-it note, and yet somehow Big is the one we're still canceling 20 years later. So here's what I really want to ask. And I want you to sit with this one. What do we actually want from the men in these stories? Because on one hand, we say we want honesty. Big was honest, brutally honest, about his limitations from the very beginning. We punished him for it. On the other hand, we say we want effort. Big showed up, repeatedly, sometimes at the worst possible times and in the worst possible ways. But he showed up. We punished him for that too, because the timing was never right. Maybe the real answer is that Big wasn't a villain. He was just a person, a rich, emotionally stunted, commitment-phobic person, in a story that needed a love interest complicated enough to fill 6 seasons and 2 movies. And honestly, the most realistic thing about Sex and the City is that the love of Carrie's life wasn't perfect. He wasn't Aiden. He wasn't easy. He was big, impossible, and magnetic, and deeply human in all the wrong ways. Which, if we're being honest with ourselves, sounds a lot like most of the great loves we've had or watched people have in real life. So was Mr. Big the villain? I think he was the mirror. He showed Carrie, and showed us, what it looks like when two people want the same thing but are both too scared, too proud, or too wrapped up in their own story to just say it clearly. That's not villainy. That's very, very human. Let me know in the comments, are you Team Big, Team Aiden, or Team Carrie should have gone to therapy? Because honestly, that third option deserves way more airtime. Drop a like if this made you rethink anything, subscribe to Night Cut for more deep dives like this, and I will see you in the next one. And just like that, the tape kept rolling.